You're about to hear stories that will shatter the myth that successful people never fall. They fall hard, they fall far, and what separates them from everyone else isn't the fall, it's what they do when they hit the ground and the world walks past them. This isn't inspiration porn, this is the raw blueprint of resurrection. Napoleon Bonaparte once wrote, "Circumstances? I make circumstances." But here's the brutal truth nobody tells you. He didn't always. After his first exile to Elba, he was finished. Exiled. Humiliated. The world had forgotten him. Yet he didn't sink into victimhood. He chose to see his fall as data, not destiny. Your worst moment right now? It's not a sentence. It's information, and you decide what to do with it. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, wrote in his private journals, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't writing this from a throne room feeling unstoppable. He was writing it while plague ravaged Rome, while he buried children, while enemies circled his borders. Your business failed, your relationship ended, your savings vanished. None of that touches the one thing you actually control, your mind, your choice, your next move. Epictetus was born a slave, tortured, broken, and then he said something that changed everything. It is not things themselves that disturb people, but their judgments about those things. His master broke his leg. His response? "If you break my leg, I will not groan." Not because he didn't feel pain, because he refused to surrender his interpretation of what pain meant. You're interpreting your failure as permanent, as proof you're not enough. What if you're wrong? What if it's just a lesson dressed up as a defeat? Sun Tzu wrote, "All warfare is based on deception." But here's what most people miss. Sometimes the greatest deception is thinking your failure was random. It wasn't. Winston Churchill lost election after election, was rejected, humiliated, sidelined. He studied every defeat like a general studies a lost battle. He wasn't waiting for luck. He was building a map from his scars. Your bottom? It's the clearest map you'll ever own. Stop crying about the map. Start reading it. Benjamin Franklin failed at business, multiple times, but he asked a question that transformed his life. What can I do that nobody else can do better? Not, how do I avoid failure? Not, why me? He got specific. He got honest. When you hit rock bottom, most people ask, why did this happen? The winners ask, what am I uniquely positioned to see from here that I couldn't see before? That vantage point is priceless, and you're standing on it right now. Seneca, advisor to emperors, wrote, "As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters." He studied the lives of great men who fell. Theodore Roosevelt went bankrupt, lost his wife and mother on the same day, sat in a dark room contemplating suicide. Then he decided that the story wasn't over. The chapter was dark, but chapters end. His comeback from that valley became legendary. You're in a chapter, not the whole story, but only if you decide to keep writing. Julius Caesar was captured by pirates, enslaved, humiliated before he conquered Rome. He later hunted them down and crucified them. Not from rage, but from clarity. His captivity taught him something his rivals would never learn. What they feared most was possible. What they avoided was the shortcut to power. Most people in your industry are comfortable. You've been to the bottom. You know hunger? They don't know. You know failure? They don't know. You have a superpower they can't buy. Abraham Lincoln lost more than he won. Lost elections, lost a bid for Senate, lost his mind for months after his son died. Yet people remember him as the greatest American president, not despite his losses. Because of them, he knew what defeat tasted like. He knew what it meant to keep standing when the world wanted him to stay down. Aristotle understood this. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Your failure plus your response to it equals something bigger than either alone. Machiavelli observed, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But what he really meant was this. When you have nothing left to lose, you become dangerous, not reckless. Dangerous. You can see moves other people are too comfortable to make, too afraid to risk. Abraham Lincoln could push radical politics because he'd already lost everything respectable. You can pivot. You can go all in. You can move when others are paralyzed by what they might lose. That's not desperation. That's power. Voltaire said, "The best is the enemy of the good." He meant you can chase perfection so hard you miss the present. But there's another truth hidden in that. Sometimes forced time away from the game teaches you how the game's actually played. Leonardo da Vinci spent years on rejected projects. Years learning engineering, anatomy, physics while people thought he was wasting time. He was building a framework. Your forced break? It's not punishment. It's preparation. Use it to see the bigger architecture of what you're building. Cicero, one of history's greatest speakers, said, "True friendship is a plant of slow growth." When you're at the bottom, you don't need 1,000 followers. You need one person who believes, one person who sees what you're building when it looks like nothing. But here's the catch. You have to be honest enough to ask. Most people suffer in silence because admitting defeat feels like weakness. It's not. It's the foundation of connection. It's where real help begins. Genghis Khan was born into poverty, named Temujin, rejected by tribes. He wasn't born a conqueror. He became one through a series of defeats that rewrote his identity. Each loss taught him something. Each rejection clarified what he actually wanted. His downfalls didn't weaken him. They rebuilt him from the inside out. Who you were before doesn't matter. Who you're becoming through this matters everything. This is where identity shifts. This is where you stop being a victim of circumstance and start being an architect of your own story. Theodore Roosevelt wrote, "The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. He watched his father lose money. He watched his political rivals rise. Then he got in the arena himself and lost elections, lost reputation. But every failure showed him what actually worked. You're collecting data right now. Painful data, but data. The guy sitting at home criticizing never gets to see what you're seeing. You're in the arena. Your scars are proof of combat, not proof of weakness. Napoleon understood something crucial. Ability is of little account without opportunity. But he also knew that opportunity without ability is worthless. You're experiencing the collision of both right now. You had ability. You've lacked clarity. You've had opportunity. You've lacked readiness. This moment, this is where they align. You have the scar tissue now. You have the humility. You have the hunger. The market hasn't changed. You have. And that changes everything. This isn't bad timing. This is your timing finally arriving. Winston Churchill faced the Nazi war machine. Everything logical said surrender. Everything comfortable said quit. But he said this: if you're going through hell, keep going. He meant it literally, not metaphorically. When you're in the dark, don't stop. Don't hide. Don't wait for conditions to improve. Move through it. The moment you decide that this fall is not permanent, that this chapter is not the ending, that you're moving forward regardless of the odds, that's the moment everything changes. Not your circumstances, your trajectory. Marcus Aurelius wrote his journals for one reader himself. He was having a conversation with the man he was becoming. Right now, you're writing a letter to your future self. Every choice you make, every time you show up after failing, every time you refuse to accept the lie that you're finished, you're writing a story that future version of you will read, and they're going to understand something the present you can't see yet, that the fall was the beginning of the rise, that the scar tissue was the strongest material you'd ever build with. Every person in this video faced a moment where they could have quit, could have accepted the narrative that they were done. Instead, they chose something different. They chose to see the failure as information, not identity. They chose to sit in the discomfort long enough to extract wisdom from it. They chose to move again. And now you know the pattern. You know what the formula actually is. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's the willingness to stay broken long enough to be rebuilt stronger. That's the only secret that actually matters. And you're already halfway through it.